Morning. Listen, I love to see so many faces here this morning. Here's the thing. I don't want you to just be here. I know, it sounds strange, right? Here's what I don't want. I don't want us to just be here, and that's the end of our conversation about faith, at the end of our conversation about Jesus. I don't want it to end as soon as our time is done here. I want all of us to, we talked about the beginning of the year, if you were here, that one of the things this year is we are wanting to grow. We're wanting to progress. There should be movement in our faith. And so throughout the year, we want to give you opportunities to help make that happen. And this morning, I've got two of them. One is, if you were at our Fusion Fair last week and you walked by our connection booth, maybe you saw a card like this. And what this card is this is a advertisement a little bit for a class, which immediately turns half of us off, like, I don't want to go to a class. But it's not a class. It's more of a conversation called Starting Point. And I want to cordially invite you, or maybe not cordially, I just want you to be there. If you have questions, if you are wondering, if you have any not sure moments about your faith, I want you to show up. It's going to be it starts next week. It's a 4-week conversation at 11 o'clock, which means if you're here right now, you're already in the building, just stay a little bit later. Lunch will still be there. All right, the Chinese restaurant will still be there, I promise. Okay, so just stay through the 11 and take part in this conversation. We've got a video, real short video that kind of promos a little bit more of what this class is going to look like.
Let's be honest. Conversations about faith are usually off limits. It's gotten to the point where the church can be the last place you would think to have a conversation about God. Well, we want to change that. Starting Point is a place where no questions or discussions are off limits. It's not about a teacher giving you information. It's about a conversation. It's about being with other people, like you. And we really mean that. You're free to ask any question you want. This is your opportunity to explore faith freely. It's not another place where people will talk at you. We want to talk with you. So are you curious about God, Jesus, the Bible, or Christianity? Or did you recently begin a relationship with Jesus? Or have you returned to church after some time away? Starting Point is for you. Every Starting Point group is guided by qualified leaders, but your voice matters to the group. Your thoughts add value. You may even ask the question that someone else is afraid to ask. Starting Point, where your questions about God turn into a conversation about faith.
Maybe you think to yourself, well, Matt, I don't think I'm there, but I've got this really good friend that is. Invite them to go, but go with them. Go with them. 4 weeks. Let them know that it matters, and so I'm going to go with you in that process. And the second thing is today we're starting this new series called The Best is Coming. And this is a study on the life of Jesus, from the book of John. And one of the ways that we want to learn this together, where it's not just me talking and then we check out, is that we're kind of growing in this together. And so if you picked up a bulletin when you came in, you probably saw a card that looks like this. This is our series logo. And on the back side, if you flip it over, what we've done is we've broken the book of John down, starting today all the way until Easter, which is when this series is going to end. And what I really want to challenge you to do is find 5 minutes every day. Literally, you can get this done in 5 minutes every day. Find 5 minutes in your day, maybe 10, read it a couple times or whatever, and read every day part of the book of John. And every day as a church, we will be reading and learning about Jesus together. And then on Sundays, when we meet up, we will talk about some of the high points in this book and in the life of Jesus together. The series is really this idea that Jesus upsets the status quo and that he brings something better, the best. And that, yeah, he has already come to this earth, but he's coming again. And here's the thing is, he wants to step into the middle of our lives. He wants to be more than just known by name. He wants to step in and invade the areas of our life that maybe we've yet to turn over. Maybe some of us were filled with lots of questions, and we're not sure how to answer them. Jesus wants to bring the best out of that. He wants to bring the best out of our marriages. He wants to bring the best out of our families. He wants to bring the best to our life. And so for you and I, the best is still coming because we've yet to follow Jesus the way that he really wants us to step into this jet stream of who he is. And really the question that we're going to answer for the next several weeks is a simple question that maybe some of us, we feel like we're confident in the answer is, why did Jesus come? Why did Jesus come to this earth? Well, I mean, He came to save us from our sin. You're right. You're right. But what if there's a deeper level to that? What if there's more richness other than just this get out of jail free and live however we want? What if there is a life-altering moment that Jesus is wanting from us, for us to move forward? The best has yet to be experienced because we've yet to fully grasp the why. The why of Jesus coming. You see, the answer to that question oftentimes determines where our relationship with Jesus is at. Maybe we're kind of at the beginning of, well, I don't feel as bad about my mistakes. Well, I don't feel as guilty about my sin. Well, I get to go to heaven now, and so I feel better, and so I can do whatever I want. I don't know why he came. Probably to keep me from sleeping in on Sunday morning. I don't know, There are all different answers to that question. But throughout this series, we're going to answer that question. Why is it that Jesus came? I want to pray and we're going to jump in. God, I'm thankful this morning. I'm thankful this morning for your word. But God, not just that we get to read words, but God, we get to look at the life of your son. And the reason why he came to this earth, and not just to make us feel better, but God, there is so much more. God, by him coming to this world, by you sending him to this world, God, we have hope. We have a different outlook on life than everybody else does. And so, Father, I pray that you will help us to maybe fall in love with you for the first time. God, I pray that we will understand what the adventure looks like, that we're following you, what this journey is that it means to follow you. And God, I pray that we will know Jesus way more than just by name. God, I pray that we will know the depths and the truth of who he is. God, we love you, and in your name we pray. Amen. Have you ever found an old picture? And maybe if you're younger, it was a baby picture. Maybe if you're not so young, it was when you had babies and now they're grown and out of the house. Maybe if you're someplace in between, it was when you were a teenager or when you were in college or something like that. You find this old photo. And you look at this old photo, and maybe if it's a little bit like me, there are thoughts in your mind of, wow, I was younger, I was taller, I was skinnier, I was younger, I was happier, I was healthier. Maybe you look at that picture of your baby when they were a baby, and you say to yourself, wow, they were cute, and now they're teenagers. You look at this picture and you recognize a change, right? We look at old pictures and we can recognize a change. And maybe for some of us it's been a great change. Maybe for some of us it hasn't, all right? But you can look back and you can see the change backwards, right? You look back and see the change. But most of the time, we don't think about the change moving forward, right? But we don't think about the change that happens in our life moving ahead, because a lot of times, for most of us, change is a dirty word. Change, it's not a 4-letter word, but it's real close. It's got 5, and we don't like it because often change upsets the comfortable. Change upsets the routine. Change upsets the tradition. It moves things around. Change is uncomfortable. And so we look back and we say, oh, I used to be, but now moving ahead, I oftentimes don't want to be. You see, change looking forward is not quite as enjoyable sometimes because it's unpredictable. We're afraid we might lose something. We're afraid we might have to let go of control. You see, change is inevitable, right? I mean, we live in a technology world where things are constantly changing. We're looking to go faster. We're looking to be more efficient. Change is all over the place. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand because I know the answer to the question of how many of us have experienced change in our life. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. We're going to take just a brief moment. I want you to turn to the person next to you, or if there's no one next to you, okay, someone in front of you. We don't want anyone to feel alone right now. Okay, so turn to them and tell them the biggest change that you have seen in your life, in your lifetime. What's the biggest change you've seen? All right, ready, go. All right. You know the biggest change that I've seen in the last few minutes? Is that change has 6 letters and not 5. So we can, yeah, there you go. I caught the laughter. I appreciate that. So change is all over the place, and whether we like it or not, it's also here as well. We don't come to church to avoid change. Really, if there should be a place in our lives where we experience the most change for the better, it should be here. And that catches some of us off guard, because church is just supposed to stay the same. Friends, Jesus stays the same. The church is going to change. And as the disciples realize this firsthand, as they are standing in the middle of a room next to Jesus, they experience change. And Jesus bringing about change unlike anything they have ever seen before in their lives. And when we come face to face with Jesus, when we encounter Jesus by reading what he did, it should challenge every bit of our being every time. If you brought a Bible this morning, go ahead and open up to John chapter 2. John chapter 2 is where we're going to hang out today. You're welcome to read along on the screen or also look it up on your phone. John chapter 2, Jesus finds himself in a quaint, small village known as Cana. And as he is in this village, his disciples are with him, his mom is with him, and they are at a specific party. It is a wedding feast. And now for you and I, wedding ceremonies, all right, they're in the afternoon or evening. There's a party afterwards. We go home and it's done. Like, that's it. But during this time period, this wedding celebration lasts all week long. There is ample time for everybody in the community to come and show their appreciation and show their congratulations to the bride and groom. And so it is an all-week affair. However, at the middle of this wedding feast, something happens. And when Jesus steps in, it changes the whole party. John chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "There is no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." And nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the sign through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. There they stayed for a few days. So Jesus is in the middle of this wedding party. He's staying in someplace in close proximity to his mom. His disciples are someplace nearby. The fact that they're all there leads us to believe that Jesus knew the person that was getting married. His mom knew. That's why that they are all attending this event. And as Jesus is standing there, most likely someone comes up to Mary and tells Mary, "Listen, we're out of wine." Now, for those of us listening to this today, you're thinking, well, okay, that's disappointing. Find something else to drink. But during when this event is happening, if you ran out of wine at your wedding feast, it was a complete embarrassment for the entire family throwing the party. The bride, the bridegroom, everybody. In-laws, parents, it was an embarrassment for everybody that was at this party. So much, it wasn't just a disappointment. It wasn't so much that people were upset by the situation. There very well could be a lawsuit brought against the family because they ran out of wine. It's intense. And so Mary hears of this news. She hears of this news and immediately she looks at Jesus and he says, they have no more wine. And when you read Jesus' response, when I read it, I think to myself, Jesus, hold on a second. Like, she's just making this statement, they have no more wine. Woman, why do you involve me? Whoa, calm down, Jesus. Dirt floor was a little rough last night, huh? Yeah. Like, hold on. She's not. But what Jesus understands is that Mary is doing more than just informing him. Mary is involving him. And when Mary involves Jesus, there is this transition that happens because when she involves Jesus, something changes. When he says, my hour has not yet come. You read these two statements. Woman, why do you involve me? Now, I'm never going to address my mom as a woman, all right, first of all. All right, but understanding the word can also be translated as ma'am, which is a little bit more polite. Ma'am, why do you involve me? In other words, I'm not sure if I'm ready. And then my hour has not yet come. It is also this question that Jesus is asking his mom of, is it my time? So in other words, Mom, I'm not sure I'm ready for this. Is it my hour? And when Mary involves Jesus, the whole scene plays out a little bit different. You notice Mary's next words to the servants? Mary looks at the servants and she says, do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you. I want to pause in the story for a minute and just ask the question, can you imagine how different our lives and our churches would be if we stuck to Mary's command? Can you imagine how different we would be and the church as a whole would be if we took Mary's words here as instruction for life of do whatever he tells you? It would upset the comfortable for sure. Church would never be the same. Can we imagine how different if we lived out these words? The servants, upon hearing this, Jesus looks at them and he says to them, hey, go take those stone jars and fill them with water. Now, I want to know who the servant is. Like, okay, I'll get the 30-gallon stone jar and go fill it up. Who's that guy? Hercules is at the party? You know what I mean? Like, who gets that job? And I often wonder, what's the servant's thought process as this has happened? Like, if we're playing into this scene and trying to understand the different parts of it, the servants are hearing Jesus say, go fill these water jugs up with water. You're not my master. Like, the servants have a master, and he's over at the head table. It's not Jesus who's just hanging out in the back with his mom and disciples. Why am I listening to this guy? Why am I following this guy? Why am I listening to his commands? And better yet, why am I dragging this big jug of water that he told me to drag over here? And I wonder how many times we have the same attitude with Jesus. Why am I doing this menial task? Why am I serving in just this small way? Why am I having to clean this? Why am I listening to this guy? Why am I getting up on Sunday morning to come up here? Why am I spending my time this way? Why am I giving my money? Why am I doing this simple task? But friends, sometimes in following Jesus, our role might be carrying the water. Sometimes the biggest thing that Jesus might have us do for a season in life is just carry the water jugs. It's a simple task that we're not sure what they mean, but this water is the very vessel for miraculous moments. And your job right now could set the stage for the miracles that Jesus will do in someone's life tomorrow. The very thing that you don't see the point in right now, that you know that you're called to, that you're supposed to do, but you do it a little bit begrudgingly, could be the very avenue that Jesus is going to use to lead someone else to a relationship with him. Sometimes, friends, we have to be willing to carry the water pots before Jesus can bring the change. And a lot of times when we think about Jesus, it's Jesus, I need you to fix this. Jesus, I need you to heal this. I need you to solve this. I need you to step in. I need you to mend this. But sometimes we want the change without carrying the water pots first. Sometimes obedience needs to come in before change has its place. And sometimes the biggest thing that we can do can be to carry the water pots when Jesus tells us to. They get back with these water pots. They're full to the brim with water. And Jesus says to these guys, hey, scoop some out and bring it to the master of the banquet. This is the MC of the event. This is the guy walking around with the microphone. This is the one that, is the showman of the room. And as he brings this water, as the servants bring this water, he takes a drink of it because there is an obvious problem with nothing to drink. He tastes it, and he is blown away by the quality of this wine. So much to the point that he goes and he walks over to the head table and he leans down on the head table and he looks at the groom and he says, I don't understand what you've done. The groom has absolutely no idea what's going on at this moment. He says, I'm not sure what you're talking about. He said, everybody brings out the best wine at the beginning when everybody knows that they're enjoying it. And then they bring the watered down stuff in at the end when everybody's trashed and going home. He said, but you gave us the watered down stuff at the beginning. No offense. But now the choice wine, now the very best you have rolled out. I don't get it, but I love it. All right, and then he lets everybody at the party know, listen, there's plenty more to drink. This is not an issue anymore. You see, Jesus, when everybody else sees the status quo, when everybody else is drinking the regular mundane wine, Jesus brings this best and he offers it to everyone. And I've asked myself several times this past week, as well as other people I've read, why is it? Like Jesus is rolling out, this is the first miracle, this is the first thing that he has really done. And as he is rolling out this new kingdom campaign, this new ministry in this side of the world, why is it out of all the miracles he could have done, out of all the broken he could have healed, out of all the sick that he could have brought to life, why is it that he chooses, out of all of this, to bring wine to the party? To turn water into wine. One, for his disciples, it shows the power that he has. Two, because the kingdom that Jesus is about, now hear me clearly and don't read more into it. The kingdom that Jesus is bringing is about joy. Everybody else knows all, Nathan talked about it perfectly, all of the rules. And Jesus is bringing about a kingdom of joy, that where you don't feel beat down, where you don't feel constantly tired because you can't match up and you're always trying to heal yourself. Jesus is ushering in a change into a kingdom of joy. And so, of course, he would step into the middle of the party and he would say, I am different. And I'm inviting you to a different wedding banquet that is unlike any you've been to before. I am bringing the best. I'm bringing about change like you've never seen it before. I'm bringing about a life change like you've never seen it before. And so many times, friends, we hear these facts and we hear the name of Jesus and we show up and we sing about Jesus. But if we're to ask the question, why? I think a lot of times this is where we lose it. Simon Sinek, a leadership guy, he talks about how the why is the most important. Why is at the center, and after that there's what and how. And a lot of times when we talk about church and Jesus and following Jesus, we talk about the what and the hows. Well, I need to go to church, and I need to go to this program, and I need to volunteer here, and I need to serve here, and I need to give here. If you were talking to a friend who doesn't know Jesus, you were really wanting them to come and experience Jesus with you. And they asked you, well, I mean, what's the point? Say, well, listen, I really want you to come and meet Jesus with me. Well, what's so great about Jesus? Well, I mean, we get to give part of our income away, and we get to go and we get to stand in a room and sing, and we get to maybe get up on Saturdays and serve meals to people who don't have meals, and we get to volunteer to change diapers, and we get to do all these really cool things. So I want you to come follow him. How many of us are sold? Right? Like, as good as that offer is, I'm going to sleep in, right? It's because all we did was explain the what and the how. And if you have no understanding beyond that, it's not so enticing. But if someone asks you, hey, what's in it for me? Listen, I want you to come and follow Jesus, and this is why. Because he has taken me from feeling completely empty and broken and given me hope in life. Because he has healed the wounds of my parents' broken marriage, and he's healed the wounds of my broken marriage, and he's healed the wounds of losing a child, and he has brought life into my dead, lifeless bones. When I didn't think that there was any hope at all, he poured life into me when I read about who he is and how much he cares about me, and he left everything that was perfect, and he walked into this world for everything that was broken and dirty. And he stepped into this world for you and for me. And that's why I want you to follow Jesus. How many of us are sold now? You see, when we understand and grasp the why of Jesus coming, that he is coming to bring life change and not just get us out of jail, it changes the course of our relationship. When we understand that the best is being offered for eternity, it changes what we're chasing. Paul writes in the book of Ephesians, he says, as for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and the ruler, the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were deserving of wrath. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in our transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. You see, Jesus is bringing about a change in this world that brings life. The moment of change in this story is water to wine, and the moment of change in your life and mine is death to life. As Mary involves Jesus, she recognizes that there's a transition that happens in her life. As she involves Jesus into this story, there's a transition to submitting to him as Christ and no longer just leading him as son. You see, she knew about Jesus as her son, but as he steps in and brings a miracle to the table, she now submits to him as Christ. He has done the miraculous. He has done something no one else has done. He has brought about change, and even change in their relationship. No longer is it known about his son. Now it's submitting to as Christ. This morning, have you and I made that transition? Have we transitioned in our lives from just knowing about Jesus and feeling a little bit better at ourselves? Have we submitted what we do with our life, who we are, how we act? Every aspect of our life have we submitted to Jesus? You see, because there's a transition that happens when we submit, where it's no longer about comfort, but now it's about Christ. This past week, the kids and Emily were cleaning in our house, and I wasn't home at the time. But Levi, he got a new job. It used to be Reagan's job, but she got promoted to more responsibility. And so Levi was doing the task of cleaning off the bathroom counter. Okay? Not super complicated, but for a 5-year-old, it was a little bit complicated. And so he spent time cleaning off the counter and wiping it down. And he spent time organizing all of the things on the counter, which for a 5-year-old is, he spent a great deal of time. But when I came home, the whole counter, it was clean. And I opened the medicine cabinet, and things were kind of where they were supposed to be. It wasn't all random and everything like that. And so I said, Levi, good job. Well, a little bit later that day, I'm up in my room, and I hear Reagan and Levi, and they're at the sink in the bathroom. And all of a sudden I hear, Sissy! I'm like, oh no, what are we doing now? And so I turn the corner right as Levi looks at Reagan and says to her, I cleaned this all morning, and you left this here. Like, uh-oh, it's about to get real. And Reagan looks back at this small little thing of nail polish, the only thing on the counter. And she goes, I'm sorry, I forgot. And Levi looks back at Reagan and says, I already cleaned it. Please put it away. And at this, I'm looking to the skies for Jesus to come back, Like Levi realizes, the same Levi that has clothes strung out all over our house is now recognizing the cleanliness of our counter. And I'm like, Reagan, are you supposed to put it away? Yeah, I just forgot. I said, then just pick it up and go put it where it goes. And so like any good older sister does, she picks it up with a little bit of an attitude. She rolls her eyes and walks out the door. And I look at Levi and he goes, I'm like, do we want to replay this of all your stuff all over this house right now? He was so frustrated because he spent all of this time cleaning up, and now all of a sudden something was back on the counter. And I know that he doesn't, but sometimes I wonder if Jesus feels the same way about us. I spent 33 years cleaning this up, and you went back to it again? I spent 33 years on this earth all the way to a cross to pull you out of that mundane, and you're back in it again? I spent 33 years cleaning off the counter of your life, and you've set that addiction back down again? I spent 33 years cleaning it up, and you're still choosing the comfort instead of what I'm calling you to. And friends, I know that there's some of us in the room that we decided to follow Jesus a whole bunch of years ago. But we stopped submitting to him a long time ago. There is a difference between knowing his name and submitting to who he is. And when Jesus changes water into wine, he ushers in a new kingdom that doesn't just say, I want to bring the best, but ushers in a kingdom that we're called to submit to and not just know about. Have you made the transition? Have you made the transition outside of just attendance in this room? But has the why of Jesus coming to this earth, does it change the way you parent? Does it change the way that you love your spouse? Does it change the way that you manage your finance and run your house? Does it change the way you treat your coworkers? Does the why of Jesus change the way you treat people in town, the way that you love your enemies, the way that you pray for the people that you can't stand? Does the why of Jesus, does it change who you are from the inside out? Because in order for us to experience the best, we have to do more than just know. We have to submit and follow. Why don't we go ahead and stand together? We're going to worship and sing, and we're going to sing a song about a moment in our life when, as I said, that our life changed when it went from death to life through Jesus. That moment on the cross where death was put in chains because Jesus stepped in. Moment in our life when Jesus stepped into the brokenness and the sin in our life, and he says, no, I'm going to take that. I want you to have life. I want you to have grace. I'll deal with the guilt and the punishment. I want you to have life. In that moment, our sin was taken captive. In the words of this song, it was arrested. And you and I were given freedom. Maybe this morning as we worship, you've never made the choice to go from knowing to submitting. It's a new commitment. But maybe this morning as we worship, that's where you're at. I need to make this choice. I need to make this transition. Maybe we submitted a while ago, but then we stopped because it was uncomfortable. And maybe this morning as we worship, we get back to that. And we just invite Jesus in again and say, Jesus, I settled for comfort, and I've been missing the best. I want to submit again. There's a difference between knowing and submitting. This morning as we worship, as Jesus submitted to a cross, he brings us freedom. This morning, have we made the transition and the change yet? Let's worship.